There's only one other alternative.
Oh, Brittany.
Good to go.
All right. I'm Michelle Rehill. I'm the chairperson of the Library Board of Trustees for the Northborough Free Library. I call this meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. I will now read the governor's advisory regarding open meetings or remote meetings. This open meeting of the Library Board of Trustees is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on March 29th, 2023. All members of the Library Board of Trustees are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The act allows the Library Board of Trustees to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will not feature public comment. I will now take attendance. So members, when I call your name, please reply that you are here. Brittany Burns.
Brittany Burns here.
Mitch Cohen.
Mitch Cohen, hello.
Pat Fonts.
Here.
Jim Hogan.
Jim Hogan here.
Jocelyn McKelney.
Jocelyn McKelney here.
Beth Samus.
Beth Thomas here.
Richard Tucker.
Good Tucker here.
And I'm Michelle Rehill. I'm here because I said I am. All right, so everybody is here. And also with us, we have Jen Bruno, Library Director. Okay, having gotten through that part of the show, we will move on to the approval of the minutes from November 19th, 2024 and the December 10th, 2024 meeting. There is a slight typo in the where it says appropriations report. There is an S where there should be an A in appropriations. So that will be fixed.
Got it.
Those
I'll take care of that.
Thank you. And there's one that I think we should keep it in the December report for item number 1 under new business. It actually has an exclamation point instead of a 1. But we like that.
Yeah, that's I got it.
On top of that one. Okay.
Yeah.
Also, we were supposed to have a synopsis of the health and wellness survey, but due to an illness, it will be late. So the last sentence of that paragraph will be the synopsis of the board's discussion will be sent at a later date. Actually,
Hang on a minute here.
the full report will be sent at a later date.
Got it.
Okay.
If it was stated at a particular meeting during that meeting,
Yeah.
we have to reflect what was said, even if in retrospect it turned out to be incorrect. Just
That's correct.
a technicality. It's okay to have errors in meeting minutes if the humans made an error or something changed later.
Should it then read will be appended to these minutes? Because
Yeah.
makes it sound like
Yes, it sounds like it's there already.
Well, it will be.
Yeah, because we did say at the time, we said they will be appended.
that's fair.
Okie dokie.
If someone down the road were looking at this a month from now, I assume they'll be done and they will be appended.
All right. So that being said, can I have a motion to accept the minutes as, I almost said as appended, as amended?
Before
looking
you
for-
vote,
Oh, yes.
sorry, I just noticed, should Lisa Maselli be listed as a guest?
Oh, you
I
know,
don't- Sorry,
thought
I'm
about that.
not, yeah.
and I said, well, she wasn't there when we started the meeting, but yes. I think we should. All right, so we will add Lisa Maselli. As also present.
That meeting feel like it was 3 months ago.
Ah, and
Sorry. I'm like, what do you mean, Lisa Maselli? I'm looking and looking, I'm like, what? Yeah. Wow.
yeah, she talked about the sign.
Yeah. And I'm looking, I'm like, there's no way that was 4 weeks ago, but here we are.
It was. Okay, now that you've saved us once again,
It was last year, Jocelyn. It's okay.
thank you, Brittany. Would
Are you
someone
looking for
like,
one motion for both sets of meeting minutes, or do you want them separate?
because they can be done together because we put them on as one item on the agenda.
I'll make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes of November 19, 2024 and December 10, 2024 as amended.
I will second that.
Thank you, Jocelyn. I will do a vote. All right, all those in favor of accepting the minutes for 11/19 and 12/10, 2024, please say aye. Brittany Burns,
Brittany Burns, aye.
Mitch Cohen,
Mitch Cohen, yes.
Pat Fonts,
Pat Fonts, aye.
Jim Hogan,
Jim Hogan, I.
Jocelyn McHeleny,
Jocelyn McKelney, aye.
Beth Thomas,
Beth Thomas, aye.
Richard Tucker,
Richard Tucker, I.
and I also say aye. So the motion to accept both of those minutes passes unanimously. All right. The FY25 report, appropriations report. Did I say that? Does anybody have any questions or comments about that?
I have a comment. If you look at office supplies, the reason that we're 107% instead of 50% like we should be, we had to buy a new desk for the assistant director. And also we had like 3 office chairs break. Like the office chairs are 20 some odd years old, so like wheels were falling off, and like if you were sitting there meeting with me, every once in a while my chair would just go. I may reclass those just because they got put in office supplies, but I may use state aid or something like that just because it's gonna make us look like we're super, super over budget. And those were more expensive items that are not generally like Post-its and copier paper. So there may be a correction that you'll see next month.
Okay. So if there aren't any questions or comments about it, we can move on to the library director's report.
I'm gonna bite my tongue and not apologize for the length of the report because it does cover 2 months. But I try not to send you so much. But yeah, if anybody has any questions, please let me know. I did about 20 minutes before the meeting started, I did receive the report from Maura. I just haven't had a chance to look it over, so we'll definitely have that to discuss next month.
Okay.
Please come and see the carpet. It looks really nice. I didn't have a chance. I wanted to be able to have a picture to show you of like the before one that I sent and then after, just so you could see maximum contrast. But feel free to come and take a look. It looks great. As do the rest of the floors now that everything's been refinished and cleaned, and it looks wonderful.
Well, I'm afraid to go in and walk on it. I don't want to get anything dirty. Since at the beginning of your report, you put the annual library trust fund and the draft budget, those are things that come under new business because we have a couple of votes there. Does anybody want to ask any questions about anything else, other than the trust funds and the, draft budget? and the confidentiality statement and the April 10th library closure. I knew I was missing something.
Yeah, I did put them as new business. I just accidentally put that before the library report when I was merging everything. This is another reason I shouldn't send you 40 pages of stuff.
I actually thought, I went back and I had to reopen the stuff that you sent us to look and make sure that I read it in the right order. I was like, okay, well, it's a little bit backwards, but it's all the same
I have
information.
a question.
Richard, yeah.
Jen, you know, the Plymouth Rocket,
Mhm.
matter? What was the, amount of the, refund that you think we're entitled?
They owe us $287.50 ish. Based on my
Are you
calculated,
going to seek that?
I'm sorry,
Are you going to seek that?
I sent them
refund?
2 letters.
Oh.
They responded to everybody by saying that no one is getting a refund at all.
Well, how about you send them a lawyer's letter, get town council?
I did reach out to the town administrator to see what she thought. I will check with her to see if she decided to pursue that with town council. I don't know if $287 would cost, it might cost more for the lawyer to draft the letter than it would actually recover. And I
suspect
know that there's a class action lawsuit that is being organized by another group of librarians. So I will pursue that cautiously. I don't, again, I want to be mindful that I don't spend more than $287 on it.
Right.
But yeah, they really did.
Yeah, I hate them to get any of our money.
Yeah.
But they don't deserve it, you know?
Yeah.
And if you don't follow it up, if there's a bankruptcy or something, you won't get any, you know?
Right.
So.
Yeah, I will pursue it at least a little bit more because they left everybody in a lurch.
If you use town council, does that come out of our budget? Do we have to pay them?
Town council, I believe the town has a budget for legal council.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wouldn't come out of the library's budget. It would come
Yeah,
out
get a-
of the
Get a
overall
letter
town
from him.
budget.
You know, an aggressive letter.
Yeah, I had a related thought, is that KP Law, who is Northborough's town council, is the largest town council firm in the state. They
Mhm.
probably represent a number of the other libraries that were impacted by this. There might be a strength in numbers situation as far as even just, short of class action, which is a big process, short of, just having town council write a letter and 15 libraries agree to share the cost of doing that. And then all of a sudden, then it costs us $20.
Right.
And KP Law is a good firm to work with.
Good point.
I'll bet they could find a way to do that. So, that might be, either you or any of the other library directors impacted by this that's served by KP Law, it says, hey, we have a business related question. Can I talk to you? And they wouldn't charge for a simple question, a process question like that.
Mhm.
And they could let you know whether that's something feasible. They would probably ask that, one library director be the point person for the group. And then they could do that. And I don't know how exactly the billing would work, but one way or another, that could probably get sorted out.
That's a good point.
I have
All right,
another,
I will pursue that and go ahead. I'm sorry.
this is a kind of picky, but see under minor patrons, where you have that?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Is that part of the
Minor
policy?
patrons.
Are we getting into the policy then?
Yeah, I guess we are.
Okay.
Yeah, if we can hold off on that,
All right, yeah.
we're gonna have to visit that whole policy under new business. So
I did want to say though, Jen, I'm very thankful that you and your team had the foresight to get out of the other program with Rocket. So I just wanted to share that appreciation. I think that was really good planning on your part.
I agree.
you. It seemed like the writing was on the wall there.
Yep. Okay. If there aren't any other questions about the report in general, we can go back to it if we need to, but do we want to move on to the discussion of the annual report? I mean, the annual trust fund report. If we are ready, did everybody have time to read it? I know it's a little dense. Does anyone have any questions about it? Yes, Mitch.
First, a comment. Thank you very, very much for putting this together. This was, I think, something that I had asked for. It probably benefits, the whole board to see this and have this be a semi-regular part of the report. I know it's a lot of data in here. It's the first time I'm seeing most of this in my, I don't know, 7 or so years on the board. And so I really appreciate this and the comments and the details and things like that. I had a couple of questions. The restricted principal, those are things that need to remain permanently in there to generate interest. Okay, that was my assumption. I wanted to confirm that. So I don't need to ask what Kobayashi is because it doesn't matter. There's a Star Trek reference in there if anyone is a Star Trek nerd.
Been thinking that a long time.
Yeah, let's see. I mean, I've got a curiosity as far as some of these, but that's okay. The general comment is where there are funds available for use, whether it be restrictions or no restrictions. I think it is important for the trustees to make some decisions, even over a several month period, as far as exactly what those are used for. Not necessarily spend them right away, but say this is for, the next time we have to replace the carpets in a large part of the building, or for the next time we have to do furniture or something like that, because I know that the town's budget as a whole is going to become tighter over the next few years, is certainly all the appearances of that. I don't want someone to say, hey, the library has an extra $100,000 they don't need. And let's just cut the library by $100,000. They'll be fine. No big deal. Reality is we could fight against that. And I don't want to start that battle. I don't want anyone to think about that, so that the next time somebody says, hey, what is the trust fund interest going to be used for? It's $23,000. We should have a policy that says the trust fund interest is for this purpose. So we can immediately say, no, it's going to be used in 4 years for this thing. And we can always make those decisions different later on. But I think it's important to have decisions in place so that those are already earmarked for purposes, so that there isn't that risk of that conversation of when things get tight, we get hurt.
Is that something Jim, the long range planning committee, could take on this year?
Sure.
I think that was something that we had put in our long range plan to work out. So maybe this is a good time to start visiting that.
And
I agree.
picking up on what Mitch was saying, I think the more we can allocate things toward content, the more support we're going to get from the public, as opposed to physical things in the building. And I think if we can allocate as much as possible toward, books, videos, online services, etc., I think that's what's going to generate support from the public as we move forward.
And the other comment is some of those items we could probably spend down. New building account, we shouldn't have any money left over. The town paid for that years ago, that should get zeroed out. We should
Oh,
My
just,
chair,
$761.
my chairs.
yeah, yeah, perfect.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just again, because somebody's going to say, "Hey, why are you holding on to that money?" It's just,
All
it's one, it's,
$761.35.
yeah. Well, it's a
know.
line item to make it simpler. When there is justified need relating to building fund, just spend it. And there are probably a couple others like that it probably doesn't make sense. Yeah.
I have to tell you, Mitch, I thought about that same thing. It's like,
Okay.
some of these smaller things it would be good if it was dealt with, and that the new building fund was the one that kept popping into my brain.
Okay.
And some of them are small, very close. I'm sure that there really isn't a lot left. So, all those accounts are going to sunset pretty much shortly. Does anybody else have questions or comments about the invested trust funds?
The only comment I'll make is that I will pick up with Jen in the next couple of days about having long-range planning come back to the board with some recommendations.
Okay.
I just want to say thank you, Kate. Kate Whitman.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kate.
This was hard. This report was hard. The way that Munis, which is our accounting software, runs reports does not look like this.
Right.
And then every place where we where any restrictions are for accounts and reconciling expenditures and things like that. This was a several month long project for Kate. And I think she did such a great job.
And it's
I
really
could not have done
important. Sorry. Yes. Yeah. It's really important for you, Jen, and the town accountant and the town finance director to have the same data. So my hope is as this was worked on back and forth, that then Jason then flows some of these pieces of data into the Munis end.
Mhm.
So that when he has to run a report, he gets in theory, should have the same thing. And it may take a little bit of time to do that, but eventually Munis should be able to export this. But that's not a simple process.
It's not, well, when I say, so the numbers, when you run the Munis report, the numbers match these numbers. We made sure everything is
Great.
100% accurate. It just doesn't look like this.
Yeah.
Because it just gives you an account number.
Yeah.
So for us to keep track of what's restricted principal and what might have, even the restrictions on spending, the annual fund is technically accounting wise an unrestricted fund, but because there are restrictions that were placed when we were raising the money, it's not a fully unrestricted account. I apologize to the world who can hear my cat right now. He's 22 and he's cranky.
22.
Wow.
If you do have other curiosity questions or anything, I'm fully prepared to talk about these, so feel free to ask if you're not sure what something is. Happy to go through it.
My last question is about how frequently do you anticipate updating these? I know some of those numbers are very static and never change, and some change very, very frequently. So I don't anticipate that this needs to be in the monthly report, but I think it would be helpful to get, somewhat more frequently than annually.
I was just going to say, I found an old schedule that we use for what has to happen and when, and the invested trust fund report is an annual thing that is supposed to be done in January, according to this list.
Okay.
And I think part of that has to do with, and probably also has dealing with the interest that accrues to the accounts and not being able to, because they came from so many different places, they would have to go in and individually go in and get the report that had the interest for the year and add that and then put it into something and send it out. And not everyone was reporting at the same time, all of the places where the money was invested. It took a long time to get it into one place. And now I think the problem is that it takes a long time to break out the interest by account, because it's all in one place now, one line item, sort of. I'm not sure I'm explaining it as technically as I should, but I know that, we have accrued interest and we know that we have an amount, but then there's sort of backdoor math that has to happen to put it in the right place. So I wouldn't, definitely not a monthly thing, but if we can wait and see if we can figure out how that goes, because again, I don't think we have the interest from 2024 reflected on the spreadsheet yet. As it goes to each of the accounts.
If you'd like, I can follow up with the town accountant and the finance director and find out what would be an appropriate amount, like if it's quarterly, if it's biannually, if it's once a year, just to make sure that they're reconciling their accounts. So I'm not giving you sort of a meaningless report. Like we can always report expenses, but updated totals and things like that he might have a better answer on that.
Yeah. And if he has the ability, or she has the ability, if the town accountant has the ability to put some labels next to the account numbers and things like that to make the job easier to generate something like this would make it easier to run it more frequently, as well as make yours and particularly Kate's life easier to put in presentable form.
Now that we have this spreadsheet, it'll be easier. It won't take as long because the comments and the different columns won't change and they're there. So what we would do is, if something gets spent down, that'll be reported as a 0, and then in subsequent reports it would be removed. And then if we get anything additional, we would add that in. But now that the report is here, that piece of it is better. It's just, as Michelle explained, kind of the interest and how often is that calculated and allocated and updated and things like that. So to be continued. I will report on that for next month.
Okay. Any other questions or comments about that report? If not, I think that we're moving on to the FY 2026 draft budget. But I think we have to wait for the cat to help us out. We're doing the draft
today. I'm so sorry.
Hey, gotta do what you gotta do. Okay, the draft for the budget for FY 2026. I can't even think that way.
Let's see. There's not a whole lot of changes. We don't have a lot of huge asks this year. We got those last year. Yes. So this budget is within the 3% increase that the town accountant and finance director had asked us to do. So we only had to do one budget, which was nice. If it had gone over 3%, we would have had to do several other exercises just in the event that the town has to scale back. So we're firmly within that 3%. Some of the things that inadvertently helped us to meet that 3%, we had a lot of turnover. So we had a little bit of extra in our salary line item that helped sort of budget in the remainder of those hours for our part-time to full-time transition for our reference library assistant. When Donna retired, she was our reference librarian part-time. We replaced that position with a library assistant to be consistent with the way that the other department, the children's department, is structured. So We didn't need an MLS required part-time 19-hour-a-week person. We just needed a library assistant position. Natalia is doing amazing. We're so happy to have her. And it did allow a little bit more flexibility in our salary budget. So that helped us stay within the 3%. And we were a little bit lucky when we had to switch. So this year we're switching away from Plymouth Rocket to Assabet for our meeting room software, the event software, the museum pass management. We're also switching vendors for our web hosting and our web design because that company is sunsetting as well. There was something else that we had to update. We were able to stay kind of within a similar budget. So our costs for that did not increase terribly, although they did go up a little bit. And our new equipment was able to go down a little bit. We had purchased a CD buffing, like resurfacing machine that was heinously expensive, but very necessary. In this last fiscal year budget. So next fiscal year, we don't need to plan, our planned replacements are fewer. So that was able to go down a little bit. The books and periodicals combined with the non-print media budgets are at the 15% that they need to be for our state certification. So everything is good and it worked out to be 3% and I felt victorious. Yay. Do you have any questions about anything?
I have questions about some zeros.
Which one?
The fuel.
So most of them, the fuel line, the HVAC maintenance, the telephone. Well, so the telephone went away because we switched to Ring Central. So that's
Right. And
just a different cost that the town absorbed into their budget. Building maintenance, HVAC maintenance, and fuel are maintained by the facilities through DPW. So those budgets were transferred a couple of years ago over to facilities. They're managing that. We still have money to replace things and to pay for things. It's just budgeted more centrally.
Okay. There was something else. The office supplies line item, we didn't have anything. It says nothing for the actuals for 23 and 24.
Yeah, I don't honestly know why.
It's just
This was just a printed, everything was sort of filled out with the exception of 25 or with the exception of the 26, the new budget. And I think I just didn't look at the previous columns because they were pre-populated. So obviously we do have an office supply budget right now. That is a typo.
Okay. I didn't mean to be nitpicky on that one, but I think that was it.
It'd be good to double check those things just in case there are any totals wrong that might cause the overall percentage to be off. I don't know how the cells are calculated there.
Hopefully those won't matter though, because the percentage is based off of 2025 and those numbers are there, but
yeah.
Yeah, it should not change anything. I'll go back and just make sure.
All right.
Any other questions?
Oh, you look like you hit the $1 million mark.
No.
We're there.
Whew.
All right. If nobody has any other questions or comments about the budget? Yay, glad you came in on 3%. Excellent. Okay. Are we ready to tackle the confidentiality statement? I like all the stuff that I didn't really have to read because you just crossed it all off.
Yeah, so I went back through and I reached out to the administrative subcommittee to set a meeting to keep going on the policy revisions we were working on. Took a look at where we were and realized that we have this confidentiality statement that refers to laws that don't exist and refers to policies that conflict with other laws. So it, one way or the other, it needs to go away. So we completely rewrote it. Instead of confidentiality statement, we brought it into privacy policy so that we could keep it in line with the wording of how our other language is done. I know there are questions, so why don't I just maybe start there?
Richard had already voiced a question about in that privacy policy, the issue about the minor patrons.
Yeah, this is really a picky thing. When you put the citation for the law,
Mhm.
have it in parentheses, I don't think that's the correct way to state a citation. I think it should be G period L period space C period space 78 space, then either a section sign, you have that on your typewriter, or a S period, and then
Okay.
space 7.
This was a copy and paste from another library, so I apologize for that.
Oh,
Thank you for
that's okay.
catching it.
I knew what it meant, but it just,
Yeah, but it should be correct.
Mm-hmm.
I got a couple questions from Mitch. Mitch, do you want to start
Sure.
wherever you would like to start?
Pardon me. A question on responding to subpoenas. Some privacy-oriented organizations or organizations that have privacy stuff provide an opportunity to the target of a subpoena to quash the subpoena before the information is provided, if it's not a life or death urgent situation. So, for example, if a subpoena comes in and Jocelyn, I'll pick on you. The subpoena says, "Oh, give me all of Jocelyn's records of all the books she's borrowed," instead of Jen, you saying, "Okay, here's the list of the books that Jocelyn borrowed." You would create that list, you'd put it in a drawer, you'd call Jocelyn and said, "Hey, by the way, I have a subpoena for your information. I have that information. If I don't get something from a court within 48 hours, that prevents me from releasing it, I will release it." Something like that, so that you have a way of protecting your privacy and arguing in front of a judge that says, "Hey, this subpoena is illegal," before any of the information, becomes part of, becomes released. And, I am not at all an expert on these things, but I have read those clauses quite a bit. So that was one thought that I had.
You have a legal question that I cannot answer.
Yeah, it was.
I do not know. This is all I can tell you is that this is the language that is fairly standard across other library privacy policies, because we are required, as long as, once we talk to the town administrator, legal counsel, and or the police department, if it's in proper form and there's a valid basis for issuing it. So I don't know if what you're talking about maybe falls into that piece of it. I'm not sure how I would work that into a policy without first contacting either the police chief or town council and having them review that.
Oh, yeah.
Would you be
Definitely.
comfortable with this language for now with a future potential follow-up to that?
Yeah, I mean, this is an enhancement to the policy. It's not a concern other than I think it's good practice that, given that we have information that is very private, and I think as policy, we want to keep it private, that if, for example, Jocelyn, there's a subpoena, that you would probably want the opportunity to argue, no, that, look at the subpoena, make an argument that says you can't do it, and then we would follow whatever somebody says at the end of the day. So I think that would be a good enhancement, but I don't think it's necessary to block. Other than that, that part of it is fine with me. A couple of other questions,
Yep.
Jen, if you want me to move on.
Can I just, I'm going to make a note really quick that
Okay.
what I will do is follow up on your question with the administrative subcommittee at a future meeting.
I'll see if I can find some less vague instructions. You know, maybe whether it be a library or some other government organization that has something like that. I'll bet I can find it.
Okay.
That was going to be my ask, is if this is written out somewhere else that explains this, it would be helpful to have that language to refer to.
I have seen many large corporations sort of list this in their public relations information, but not necessarily their legal policy that might be internal. So I know there are organizations that do it, but I'll see what I can find. The next one was on searches of the online catalog. In this, we say neither the library's computers nor the automation software retain any copies of the search. Sort of, kind of, technically, that's correct, but I checked. We use Google Analytics, as does CW Mars, and they track everything that anybody searches for.
That is actually not true.
Okay.
So I read your thing and I went, ooh,
Yeah.
I know that our Google Analytics for our website only tracks hits on the pages.
Okay.
So I called Jeanette, who is the executive director of CW Mars, and I asked her, and she says that CW Mars does not track nor keep through Google Analytics or anything else records of what you're searching for in the catalog.
Okay. But
They
Google
specifically don't want it to.
Right. So you can customize your reports when you're looking at the analytics reports. I will take another look. I trust that you talked to the CW Mars person that was already familiar with the question, it sounds like. I know we don't want that data.
We do not want that data.
Right.
They do not want that data. I think the way that she explained it, they've taken steps to make sure that that data is not something that's, if you'd like, since it was a phone conversation, I can have her follow up in writing and give us something that explains kind of what I just kind of summarized.
It would be helpful. I used to be a very regular user of Google Analytics and knew how it worked. Based on working on mobile apps for the last several years, I don't use the same Google Analytics, and it has changed. So it is very possible that what I am saying is true is no longer true. That there may be ways of saying don't track this information in the way that the Google Tag Manager is created.
Mitch, is your concern that Google is keeping this data even if CW Mars and the library isn't accessing
Correct.
it? So that might be a good follow-up question, Jen, because CW Mars may never see it, but we have similar things at the high school too when we use Google in-house. So
all right. Technically, the policy is the language as stated is still correct. The library's computers and the automation software do not retain copies of it, but your point is good. If Google, who seems to know everything about everybody, is retaining copies of things, we should know about it. I think for me, that would mean that I would probably stop using Google Analytics since we are switching websites anyway. I'm not sure if our new person is using Google for these tracking.
Essentially everybody does because it is very good and it is very free. But there are alternatives out there that are more privacy oriented that wouldn't give you the same information, same quality of information, but might be more privacy preserving. And that's a subject for another day. And then the last thing, and this was in the email, I said, I think, and put it italicized, that email lists maintained by public entities are public records. And I have read that in a few places. I did a very quick search before sending that email to you, Jen, and I could not validate that. I know it's been something that people have talked about, and I don't know the current state of that. But I wanted to bring that up since we do say in this policy that we won't release it. That I don't know if you're able to find any information on that yet.
The only thing that I was able to find were some references to library newsletters falling under library, like state laws protecting library confidentiality or data
Okay.
patrons. So my thinking is that email addresses of patrons who have subscribed to our newsletter would be confidential, not public record, because it's an email address, it's personally identifying information, but that the content of the newsletter would be.
Yeah, the content would
Obviously.
clearly be public because but if you're sending the same thing out widely, then it's not, I wouldn't see that as being confidential. If the information isn't confidential, then the list of the people that received the information probably wouldn't be confidential. I hadn't thought about it specifically regarding library laws, which I love, and maybe that gives us the protection that we need there. So
I believe so. I can also check.
Okay.
That sounds like a town council.
Might be a
question
town
too.
council thing, or you know,
Yeah.
MLA or somebody like that would be great.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to going forward with the language that it is, with the caveat of let's verify and make the change at an upcoming meeting if we need to make a change.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make a note there. Thank you for reading this thoroughly and bringing up those questions.
Of course.
All right.
Are there other questions?
Anything else? Any? So the only change that we've actually made is sort of just a correction to the way the general law is cited in there. So we will fix that little bit. So other than that, there are no other changes that we are proposing to make to this policy. If not, we need a motion to vote. So, is there anyone who would like to move that the confidentiality statement be accepted as, is it revised or is it as presented or as corrected?
Corrected would be fine.
As
Amended.
corrected.
And do we call it now the privacy policy instead of the confidentiality?
Oh, yes, on here, it says confidentiality statement.
Yeah, policy is stronger than a statement. If it's corrected, it should be a policy.
Yeah, actually, is it a policy? It says, no, it says privacy. It was a confidentiality statement. Now it is a privacy policy. All right, so we need a privacy policy.
All right, so I will make a motion that we approve the new privacy policy as corrected, and that it replaces the prior confidentiality statement.
I second.
All right, so Mitch hang on, Mitch made the motion.
Beth.
And who seconded it?
Beth.
Beth, thank you, Beth. All right, all those in favor, I'll do the roll call. Brittany?
Brittany Burns, aye.
Mitch Cohen?
Mitch Cohen, aye.
Pat Fonts?
Pat Fonts, aye.
Jim Hogan?
Jim Hogan, aye.
Jocelyn McElhenney?
Jocelyn McElhenney, aye.
Beth Samus?
Beth Samus, aye.
Richard Tucker?
Richard Tucker, aye.
And Michelle Rehill also says aye. The motion passes unanimously. All righty. To the vote, we need to talk about the April 10th library closure for staff training.
Yes. So a few weeks ago, the Health and Human Services Director, Isabella Caruso, approached me and said the Shrewsbury Family and Youth Services or Health and Human Services, I'm not sure what their department is called, they have a certified instructor for mental health first aid training. This is very similar to CPR first aid training in that there's a certification process. So it is an 8-hour course. You can either take it as an 8-hour course or 2 4-hour courses that are a week apart. They really don't want to do it more than a week apart. There's a minimum number of people that are required, but if we meet that minimum between the two departments, I think it's like 10 or something like that. She'll come out and she'll do the class at no charge. The mental health first aid training is designed to teach members of the community how to recognize and assist others when they are facing mental health and substance use crises. That is how to talk to people, how to give referrals, giving the right referrals, where to give those referrals, where to find that information, de-escalation techniques, I think are covered in there a little bit too, having compassion, but also just recognizing signs that somebody might be facing a crisis. Their department really wants this training. My staff would really like this training because of the length of the class and the way that they have to present the information. There's really only 2 ways to do it, and 2 4-hour classes a week apart seemed really disruptive and difficult with our scheduling because you have to get the same people there for those 4 hours. So I'm requesting that we close for the day on April 10th. They're holding the date just in case it's a go and we can do it. We would have this joint training with Health and Human Services, which is a really good opportunity to interact with some of their new staff that we have not met yet. And to receive this training, which I think could be very, very helpful, given the rise in some of the situations that, well, nationally everybody is dealing with, but specifically we're seeing a bit more of at the library than we're used to, or than we used to previously. So that is that agenda item. Do you have any questions?
It sounds invaluable,
I think it's really important.
really.
Agreed. All right, if nobody has any questions, then would someone
Michelle,
like to oh, yeah.
Sorry, I do have a question. So yes, I agree that this is valuable, but the fact that the library was already scheduled for an early closure, does that impact pulling staff? Like I don't even know if I'm going to ask this question correctly. Does this impact how the staffing would have been handled on that day?
We picked that day because it was already scheduled to be a staff development day. So everybody
Okay.
that can generally be scheduled has that date earmarked and is available.
Okay.
So because it was already an early closure, it's less disruptive than say closing on a random Monday. And it's also the best chance we have at getting the majority of our staff to be able to attend.
Okay. Thank you. I think that's the clarification I wanted.
All right, anything else? Anyone else comments? If not, would someone like to move that the library be closed for the full day on April 10th, 2025 for the purpose of staff training?
I will make that motion.
Thank you, Jocelyn.
I'll
Wow.
second.
Thank you, Pat. All right, roll call vote. Close the library for the full day on April 10th, 2025 for the purpose of staff training. Brittany Burns,
Brittany Burns, aye.
Mitch Cohen,
Mitch Cohen, aye.
Pat Font,
Pat Fonts, aye.
Jim Hogan,
Jim Morgan, aye.
Jocelyn McElhenney,
Jocelyn McElhenney, aye.
Beth Samus,
Beth Samus, I.
Richard Tucker,
Richard Tucker, aye.
and Michelle Wehill also says aye. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
All righty. Was there anything in the director's report that anybody wanted to go back to, or are we?
Can anybody tell who's in the Grinch outfit?
People who were there can.
It's me.
Oh,
It's the Grinch. It was so fun.
Hysterical.
It
Oh,
was
I got
very
lots of
cool. I was
I
glad.
don't, I have one item. I don't remember if it was mentioned in your report, but the signs, the outside sign, we the select board approved, the ARPA funds for that. It was the day after the trustees meeting. And we increased the budget for the purpose of making sure that there was sufficient funds to run the electricity in there. That I think all of us thought that that was important, and I certainly did. Given that we were doing the ARPA closeout at that meeting and we had a little bit of leftover money, we were able to increase that. That also makes sure that, given I wouldn't even call it the procurement process to date, but the discussion with one vendor process to date was very quick. I had concerns that, other things could come up. I want to make sure that this gets done right, particularly for the library, but in addition to the other municipal buildings. So that was done. I wanted to let everybody know that.
Thank you so much. I forgot to put that in the report.
Yay. All right. Is there anything else that's going to come up?
Not that it's going to come up, but Jen, thank you for continuing to add the comments, the things we're excited about, I don't even think I read all of them because, to your point, there was a lot that was in there, but it's a really nice addition to the report. And I think it gives us a line of sight into the day-to-day, the little things that get missed when we are spending our time looking at the trust fund account balances and looking at policy changes. Like, everything on there is important. And it's important because of all of those comments that you share with us. So thank you for keeping that top of mind for all of us.
It's my favorite part of the report.
Mine too.
It was a great addition. Thanks. All right. Any other comments? If not, the next meeting will be February 11th, 2025 at 7 p.m. and it will be remote. At this time, would someone like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll move to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, Richard. Do I have a second?
I'll
second that.
Oh, Pat? I'm
Yeah.
gonna
Give it to
go
Pat.
with Pat.
Yeah.
She got it. All right, all those in favor of adjourning the meeting at 7:59 p.m. Brittany Burns,
Brittany Burns, aye.
Mitch Cohen,
Mitch Cohen, aye.
Pat Fonts,
Pat Ponce, aye.
Jim Hogan,
Jim Hogan, aye.
Jocelyn McElhenney,
Jocelyn McElhenney, aye.
Beth Samus,
Beth Samus, aye.
Richard Tucker,
Rick Tucker, aye.
Michelle Rehill also says aye. The motion carries unanimously in the affirmative. The meeting is adjourned at 7:59 p.m.